Okay, we are into step 7. We are selecting our perks and flaws. This is one of my favorite steps, possibly my favorite step in all of character creation, and it is somewhat unique to the Magitech Chronicles. Lots of systems have perks and flaws, but the way we balance ours are quite fun. So what you're doing really is picking 3 flaws, up to 3 flaws. You don't have to have any flaws at all, but you can have up to 3. Some GMs will allow you to take, even more than that, but it does get kind of crazy to track, and so we found 3 was a good realistic cap. But anyway, the way that these flaws work is whenever you exercise that flaw in a way that impacts your character negatively. So if you have an addiction and you get sick, if you're clumsy and you knock a pitcher of wine onto the ministry that you guys need to talk to just before a critical social roll, things like that, anything that's going to inconvenience you, you as a player get to role play that stuff out. And if you do so in a good, convincing way, your GM is going to award you a point of luck. Luck is extremely powerful, and this is the only way to get it. So choose your flaws with care. Most gamers that I know in most role-playing games will select flaws that are flaws in name only and don't actually inconvenience them. If you do that in this game, you're going to regret it later because other people are going to start accumulating luck and you will not be able to do so. So let's go ahead and take a look at flaws to start with. We've broken them up by category. Looking at physical, you can see basically each one of these gives you -1 to an attribute or to something like a skill check like perception. And we tried to keep the names funny, skip leg day, clueless, clumsy. Some of them are pretty mundane, like having a food allergy that's going to reduce your fortitude by 1 and also mean you are allergic to something specific like gluten or lactose or sugar or something that, you can choose to encounter or, need to take into account as a character. You can have a missing limb. And there are, pretty much anything under the sun you can think of that's not listed here. If it's going to be a negative to your character and it's physical, you should take it and build it off of what you see here. So these really are designed to be sample flaws, not an exhaustive list. And GMs are encouraged to work with their players. For social flaws, we've got punchable face. This is exactly what it sounds like. We all know that one person who just annoys you, just grates on you. That manifests into the -1 charisma, but also in how you roleplay that character. You're going to want to be annoying and get yourself into trouble in that regard. Kind of a dick is not as bad as punchable face. I guess in some ways it's only a penalty to negotiation checks. People just don't like working with you. Not in anyone's league. -1 to your appearance. You're just ugly. It's just the way that it is. Drinks get thrown in your face, and a polite no is like a positive outcome when you're trying to get a date. Fashion victim, you just dress badly. Whatever the clothes that you wear don't really fit wherever you live. So like if everybody else is wearing cloaks, you've got like a bright pink jacket. You just don't fit in, and that tends to get you into trouble with local areas because, they know you don't fit in, and local toughs may choose to mess with you as a result of that. Untouchable, you are a lower rung of society and people recognize that about you. So in modern day Earth where I live, just simply homeless people, this would apply to. People's eyes slide off them and they don't talk to them and they don't, treat them like people. There is this huge social stigma attached to them, and you're choosing to adopt that if you take the untouchable flaw. Mental flaws. Math is hard. -1 logic. You huffed paint chips as a kid. Anytime you are completely oblivious to something that most people are just going to get, the GM can choose to award you a point of luck, especially if it's making people in your group laugh. Bit of a crackhead, you are addicted to something, you've got a -1 will, but you're also addicted to something, and it doesn't have to be a drug. It can be video games, it can be working out, it can be whatever you want it to be, but you are addicted to that and you do it compulsively. Maybe you drink energy drinks all the time. But anytime you indulge that in a way that upsets the people around you and impacts you in a negative way, you may receive a point of luck. Way too literal. This can be a fun one to roleplay. You just take stuff a little bit too literally, and you can have fun with that as a character in a lot of different situations. P is for phobia. You're basically picking a phobia. So any phobia that you're aware of, or you can make up a new one if you want to. You could be afraid of dragons. Pick a phobia and play it out where it makes sense. And finally, the last one is kleptomaniac. Your character is stealing compulsively, like all the time. And you can choose what the rules around that stealing is. So maybe you have a code of honor where you don't steal from your party members. But maybe you don't. It's up to you entirely to define that, although I would clear that with your GM if you're going to be robbing your party, as that may end your death. Common magic flaws. Void Bolt, Homing Beacon. You have -1 resistance. You take more damage and are more susceptible to spells. So this is actually not a very common flaw. Very few people choose to take this. Really bad at this magic thing, -1 spell pool. It's not that bad, especially if your character is not leaning on magic. Most of the time I see that this is like a paladin that takes it because they're relying more on their miracles and less on their spells. Let's see, oops, my bad. Technology just tends to malfunction around you. Computers break down, your comm, just doesn't work half the time. The navigation maybe goes out on your shuttle. You sort of get to decide how that works. Although don't, as a player, don't try to seize control of a scene without getting your GM's, permission, but, do work with them on ways to manifest this flaw. So you've picked your flaws. Let's say you've got 3 of them. In addition to being able to get luck, you also do get perks. And many of these perks are simple attribute buffs, which are the most popular ones because you fill in those attribute gaps where, maybe you just don't have as high of a main casting attribute as you wanted. You set your expression to intuition and you want to get that higher. Maybe you're a melee character and you want a higher strength. So lots of people balance their flaws with attribute perks. They don't have to be the same category. So you could do a mental flaw, gives you a physical perk. There doesn't have to be any symmetry there. And you can see that there are no descriptions. They're much easier to understand. Again, most of these, and I'm just kind of scrolling through it slowly, most of these are attribute bonuses, but you also can see some cool stuff here, like increasing a defense. Increasing defenses is rare, and so this is a way in which you can do it, and some people will choose to do it. All 3 defenses are represented. Kick me in the junk again, you're going to get that +1 brace. Built like crews, you can get extra hit points. Walk it off. Normally, you heal your fortitude and hit points after a night's rest. Walk it off, you heal all of your hit points after a night's rest. So these are meant to give you examples of perks that are not attribute-based. So you can see that there are other things you can do. And again, just like with flaws, not meant to be an exhaustive list, you can certainly choose to add things that make sense. Okay, so we're into the mental perks. Again, you're going to see lots and lots of attribute stuff. And then finally, things like eidetic memory, where you just have a perfect memory and you can recall things with photographic clarity. As a player, when I'm GMing, I require the player to take detailed notes. If your character has a perfect memory, you as a player should really be capitalizing on that in game and trying to gather as much knowledge as you can. Otherwise, this isn't going to benefit you very much. Magical perks, these are very popular. One more spell, everybody likes spell pool, so this one gets taken most of the time. It might be a sign that we need to reduce the amount of spell pool that it gives. Savant, an extra spell. This is often taken as well for people that want one more spell from a given list and couldn't find another way to get it. Magical security blanket, you are bonded to an item. So if you have that single level magus, maybe it's a pistol, maybe it's a bracelet, you gain +1 to your spell casting skill. And then up to a maximum of 5. And then is that really how you're going to cast that? That's raising your skepticism. Social perks, traffic stopping ass. You've got that +1 appearance. Headmaster's boy. You attended a prestigious academy on Shia and everybody knows it. So it's the equivalent of going to like Harvard or Yale. You were known to be, somebody who went to a real prestigious university. King of bullshitters. There's a +1 charisma. Well connected. You have a very well-defined contact placed highly in an organization. This can be a temple or a government or a corporation. And this can be purchased more than once. So you know somebody powerful somewhere. And they know who you are and they're positively predisposed towards you. And then finally, my dad's rich. You grew up wealthy, but that doesn't mean you have money. So you don't have a bunch of money necessarily yourself, but your family does. And so you might be able to leverage that sometimes, if dad or mom are willing to buy you something, or auntie, whoever your character is that has this perk tied to them. But anyway, your parents, parent or guardian, and they're rich, and everyone presumes they'll leave their fortune to you. So you're the designated heir. And so people do treat you like, oh, eventually you are going to be rich. So it does open some doors in that regard, but can also create some problems. Anyway, those are the perks. You've seen how the flaws work. I encourage you to create your own. You don't have to take these on a character if you're intimidated by the concept of trying to role play out a flaw. You can only take, 1 if you just want to kind of dabble your toe in there, but you can take up to 3, which we found, again, most players will take full advantage of and do all of them. So that is all of step 7. Let me scroll down to the bottom here. The next step is purchasing your defensive, so we'll explain how those work in the next video.